Everyone, it's Anna from class. This is the recording of our week 7 review session. I didn't realize that Google Meet won't allow you to record unless you have their paid subscription model or their business model. So I'm doing this is the courtesy recording for everyone who couldn't make it to the review session today. Before we get started, there's one very important thing I want to cover that someone brought up in the session today. We're all working with a TSV file, right? And it's very important that to conceptualize what we're doing here. We all see the file in the way it's meant to be seen. I'm going to share my screen and I'm going to talk about something that I don't think um, I don't think everybody knew. I know when I started at GSU, I didn't have these applications on my computer. And, you know, I just didn't know. I was like, I don't need it. And it turns out you need it. Okay, so this is what the TSV file is supposed to look, right? We have a column of quests. I'll scooch this over. The column of quests. We have a column of dialogue lines, and we have a column of speakers. But it has been brought to my attention that if you open this in the web-based version of Excel, basically it puts everything in one column. And it's important that I think you open this unless you're using numbers or some other, if you have a different spreadsheet application, which you prefer, which is cool. But I know GSU has Microsoft licensing, and then I think most things are preferred for Microsoft. Okay, you have to use the application one, the one you download on your PC or Mac or Linux, whatever. So I'm going to show. Okay, if you don't have Microsoft Office Suite already downloaded on your machine, I couldn't recommend it more. Now, I never use PowerPoint. I never use Skype. I never use some of these applications. But some of these I use really often. So I use Microsoft Word a lot for assignments, and I've been using Microsoft Excel, for some of my classes. So basically, there is this website here, Microsoft Office Suite. Just Google GSU Microsoft Office Suite, and this will be the first result. And yeah, so just scroll down, download for, choose your operating system, and you will be able to get the programs that you need. So for example, I have a Mac, I would choose download for Mac. And there it gives you instructions and you can just follow those. Okay, that was my aside, but I think it's very important. Okay, let's talk about some of the concepts. So I'm going to be covering some concepts that we went over in class last week, and you can complete Programming Challenge 4 without using some of these concepts. You can do it with lists and if statements and such, but I think using these methods makes everything a lot more concise and it can save you a lot of headache. But again, it does require input and training, so you have to kind of play with it a little bit. But I promise you, once it clicks, you'll be, you'll be cooking with fire. Okay, so we're talking about dictionaries first. We'll talk about processing CSV and TSV files. We'll talk about writing out files. And I think this is out of order, but that's okay. Let's talk first about CSV and TSV files. CSV, comma, separated values. I think most Excel sheets are CSV files because they're just intended for numbers, right? But TSV is tab separated values. So again, each what is it, cell is separated by a tab. If you were to open this just as a string of text, it would have whatever is in the cell by a tab, and /n, the line break, is separating, of course, each line. In Programming Challenge 4, we're working with a TSV file, and that's because written dialogue often contains lots of punctuation, including commas, and so if we were to make it a CSV file, it it wouldn't work, right? Because we wouldn't be able to include our commas. When you split by tab or any other value, any other I don't know, any other character, you create a list. This is really important to know, okay? So if I'm splitting my text by lines, I create a list of lines. If I'm splitting my list by tab or I'm splitting my lines by tab, I'm creating a list of tab separated values, right? It's very important. Okay, because we've created a list, right? We can use list slices. Um, very, very useful for this assignment. So if you remember from our file here, we have this like labeling at the top, quest, dialogue line, speaker. This is not something we need in our output, right? This is just for our purposes so we know, okay, like what's going on in this Excel file. What do these columns represent, right? We have to skip over these because we don't need them and they'll just kind of create some unnecessary noise in our output here. So, for example, let's say I want to access all of the lines except for that very first one that says quest, dialogue line, speaker, right? I can use lines 1 to infinity, right? Now I'm accessing, I'm recalling everything but the header row. And then below that, remember, these are the like indexes of each item. So example, let's say I have created a list called cells. I say cells equals text split by tab, right? I have a list of all of my, and if we look at the Excel, we see, the first one is, it goes quest title, dialogue, speaker name. Let's say I have a list containing lists of each of these. Okay, if I say cell 0, that's my quest title, right? Cells 1, dialogue line. Cells 2, speaker name. If you're iterating over each line and you use this like command to recall each of these, you're cooking, you've got some stuff going. And I think using list slices is kind of like indispensable for this. Okay, now let's move on to dictionaries. Dictionaries are kind of confusing at first because they are so structurally different than the other like formats we work with. They're different than lists. They're different than strings, right? What else have we done? Not just basically like this, right? Um, Dictionaries store value as key value pairs. And I know the exercise we did in class was where we all created like a dictionary, like a translation dictionary, right? We have the Portuguese word and then the English word that corresponds to it, or the word of your language of choice, right? Whatever you want to do. So for example, keys can be things like your key is a word, your value is a definition, your key is a category, your value is an item, your key is a title, your value is a subordinate of that title. Think of it like a folder. Like in your computer, when you click on a folder, you have a lot of files in your folder. Like imagine it like this kind of data structure. So how do we initialize a dictionary? So this third bullet point here, where I say my dict, this is how you initialize an empty dictionary, right? My dict equals 2 curly brackets, or my dict equals dict 2 brackets. Your choice, they don't really have any difference. It can kind of make like improve readability if you write dict, because you're like, okay, it's a dictionary, right? Like let's say instead of my dict, it was like quests equals dict. Okay, now I know it's a dictionary. Because like unless you're looking closely, it might be. It's hard to tell if it's a curly bracket or parentheses or the standard bracket, right? And then that fourth bullet point, my dict, it's kind of just like an example of how a dictionary is formatted. We have a key. I don't know, that's not supposed to be a semicolon, so imagine that's a regular colon. Okay, so I have keys with multiple values. Key 1, value 2, key 2, value 3, value 4. Something really important to know about keys is that keys must be unique. In a list, you can have multiple values that are identical to each other. If I said apple list, wait, not apple list. Okay, let's say I have fruit list. My fruit list is apple, 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 banana, orange, 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 mandarin. Okay, like those, that's perfectly valid and perfectly legal. And if I ask it to return my list, it's going to give me every single one of those. But however, if I were to like initialize key that's the same, I might get an error message. But second of all, if I try to append and like the same key that I already have in my dictionary, it's going to overwrite it because you can only have like unique keys. Can't have two of the same. It doesn't work. You can have values that are the same. You can have any number of identical values anywhere, but the keys must be unique. But this is actually really useful and it's something that we'll get to. So how you access values is you use square brackets. So for example, I say my dict key1, I'm calling key1. If I say print my dict key1, it returns value 1, value 2 as a list, right? It can be a list. And then you add or modify using the same format. So you write in the name of your dictionary, the name of your key in square bracket equals whatever your value will be. So yeah, if you want to overwrite or add, that's up to you. You can use append on these. You can use extend. You can use pop. You can use remove. So again, if I really wanted to, I could write my dict new key equals new value dot append new value 2. And I'm putting those together. So thanks. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about some more operations for dictionaries. So like I said, you dot extend, dot append, dot whatever you want to do, dot whatever operation. You can do these things with dictionaries, but there's some that are unique to dictionaries. So if I said my dict dot keys, if I said print my dict dot keys, when you have a parentheses like that, that just means it's self-referential, right? That will give me all of my keys. My dict.values returns all the values of a dictionary, despite the keys, okay? It's not going to write in the keys, it's going to write every single list of values, right? And if I said my dict.items, then that's every single key value pair in my dictionary. Okay, sorry if you can hear my cat. Another thing that's important is you can, like any other operation, you can iterate over like item classes of your dictionary. So if I'm like saying for key value in my dictionary items, remember dot items is key value pairs. So I'm iterating over every single key value pair in my dictionary. If I said for key in my dictionary dot keys, now I'm iterating over every single key. If I said for values in my dictionary, well, and imagine this bracket is closed here, my apologies. I will iterate over every single value. This is really useful if we're talking about just if we look at like programming challenge 4, we're like, okay, what are my keys going to be? What's important that I make keys? My advice to you is that your quest name should be your keys, okay? We're talking, just think about your, like, okay, I want to have a folder of text files, and the name of each text file is going to be these. Like, how is my folder structure going to look like? Imagine like you're just like looking for a file in your computer. Now let's talk about checking if statements, right? I can say if key1 in my dictionary. So if the key exists, if dialogue Bunker Hill in my dictionary, then, then something, then add it, then don't add it, then do something. I don't know, whatever you want to do. I can initialize a variable like quest equals cells1. I think that's not right. I think that would be, just if, I don't know, quest equals cells 0. If I said if quest's not in my dictionary, if the variable I'm calling, if that's not in my dictionary, I can do something, right? You can kind of check anything. I think this is definitely referencing, referencing a key. Again, I have it for speaker, speaker cells too. If speaker not in speaker dictionary, what if I need a dictionary of speakers? I don't know. What if that's what I want to do? Do it. Okay. I hope all of that was understandable and comprehensible because I'm still kind of reviewing over it myself, right? Okay, now let's talk about writing out files. This is the part I'm the haziest on. Okay, organizing your data is the first half of the battle. Now we have to write it out, okay? So file names are strings, basically. The way Dr. Dixon has it in the like getting started, he has like file name, like you initialize a variable as file name, you define a variable as file name, and then you add .txt. You could do this, just imagine how you could do that. You could create a format for how you want to name your files and concatenate that with .txt, and then you have a file naming scheme. So yeah, just know it has to be a string. Second, open. So in order to write anything in a file, well, first of all, the file has to be created. Second of all, you have to open it to write in it. Just think about how it works. Okay, if I want to put stuff in a file, first I have to create, if I want to write something in a Word document, first I have to create a new Word document and then I write in it, right? It can't be the other way around. That's impossible. So file out, again, that's a variable name. It could be anything. Open the name of the file and then W plus. We'll talk about W plus a little bit. It's not super important, but I think it's helpful to just like know what it does. If you take anything away, just put W plus, okay? Just put it in there. W by itself is write mode. So that creates a new file or overwrites an existing file. And if there's a file that already exists, it just deletes it. W plus is read and write mode. Unless you're wanting to maybe check something in your file or something like this, you don't really need read mode. We're mostly concerned with writing out files, but it doesn't hurt to put W plus because if you just make it a habit, maybe there will be some day where you need read mode and you might, I don't know, might get confused. And again, that does exactly the same thing. It just adds writing capabilities, okay? Okay. And yeah. So again, this is from the getting started with open file path B plus encoding as file. Okay, so again, we're opening something and we're like, this is our file, is what we're saying, right? Opening it as a file. File path is your path. The path is already kind of defined in the getting started one, so that's not super important, but the path is like, okay, where are we going to get this file? Or we know W plus and then UTF-8 encoding. Somebody asked about this in class and somebody asked about this in last week's review session. And UTF-8 is just a character coding standard. The 8 stands for 8-bit, and it's the most common character encoding. I think before I said, oh, this is just like alphanumeric characters, but it goes beyond that. There are many different alphabets that are encoded using UTF-8 encoding. So yeah, I mean, basically what this line is saying, open a file and write into it using UTF-8 encoding. And then we also have one where it's like errors equals ignore. Basically, if there's a character you don't recognize, just skip over it and keep going. Also important is to say you can write out a file iteratively. Iteration. So I could say for line and lines, file.write. Let's say I have two variables called speaker and dialogue. You know, just going over each line and writing it for each time. And if that's inside another loop, that could be per file. Boom, you're in business. Okay. And this is some final information here. So let's talk about sets. I think this is something super useful for like one specific part of this assignment is talking about sets. So sets is unique values of a list. I mean, it doesn't have to be a list, but a set is a set, okay? A set is a kind of list, but a set has only unique values. So if we go back to like talking about like fruit list is apple, 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 orange, orange, mandarin, banana, banana. If I said fruitless equals fruitless dot set, now it's just apple, orange, banana, mandarin, unique. Where is this useful? Well, there's a part of the assignment where it talks about number of speakers. Think about how a set would be useful when we're talking about um, unique speakers, right? Because if I have one person saying multiple lines and it has the speaker, let's do this. Here, look. Okay, let's talk about dialogue Bunker Hill. We have Kessler, 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 player default Kessler. Okay. If I'm making a list of all of the speakers, it's going to give me all of these names all of these times, depending on how I'm getting these values. But if I'm using set and I have all of these as a list, well, now it's just giving me Kessler, player default, and Joe Savoldi. Okay. And then maybe what you can do from there is find out, okay, now what's the number of speakers, which was super easy. We all know how to do that. Yes. Um, Maybe we can look over this one more time. Okay. So we have our TSV file, and basically what we want to do, all the lines of dialogue from unique quest, the name of the speaker, and a file naming scheme. This is what it should look like. I think this is one of the more challenging ones, and let's see, stop sharing. So this is like one of the more challenging programming challenges so far, and it might be one of the most challenging ones yet, just because of the point we are with what we know, what we've covered. But my point is to say, like, if you just, I don't know, keep working at it, keep thinking, keep coming back to stuff, keep trying different strategies, trying new things, um, there will be an answer for you waiting. Yeah, I just want to say thanks for watching. If you have any questions, you can go on GroupMe, you can email me, you can go to Dr. Dixon's office hours on Mondays. I'll do another library room on Tuesday where we can all go and program together, like finish up. Yeah, best of luck and stay strong at this point in the semester. Okay.